Picture a battlefield. The sun hasn't risen yet. There's silence, no swords raised, no war cries, and yet a winner already stands. This is the image Sun Tzu, author of The Art of War, invites us to imagine. Victory without combat. An idea that feels impossible in today's world. We've been taught that winning means confrontation, that only the loudest, strongest, and most aggressive succeed. But what if the greatest victory requires no fight at all? Sun Tzu believed the highest form of warfare is to avoid war entirely, that the true master never needs to draw his sword. According to the Global Peace Index, over 110 conflicts rage across the world today, but the real damage often comes from invisible battles, toxic workplaces, broken relationships, inner struggles, and maybe the secret to victory lies not in battlefields, but in mastering the space before they even form. If winning without fighting is so powerful, why do we keep choosing conflict? The answer lies in what we've been taught. From early on, we link victory to domination. Brute strength became a symbol of success. At work, the loudest voice seems the most competent. In relationships, the one who never backs down seems in control. Online, winning means shutting someone up with the final word. But is that really winning? According to Harvard Business Review, poorly managed conflict costs billions in lost productivity every year, and the damage goes beyond money. It shows up as stress, burnout, broken trust. We live in a constant state of war, and we don't even realize it. The irony is that by rushing into fights, we lose the chance to build anything lasting. Direct confrontation creates noise, resistance, and fear, but strategy opens doors, and everything changes. When we stop reacting and start truly seeing. Sun Tzu said, "Know yourself." But how often do we enter conflict without even knowing what we're protecting? Most of our battles begin with impulse, a wounded ego, the fear of looking weak, the need to prove something, and suddenly we're fighting without a real reason. The truth is, the most dangerous enemy isn't out there. It's inside. It's the ego that screams, the fear that freezes us, the anger that acts before we think. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman explains that we make most decisions on autopilot, quick emotional reactions. We don't respond, we react. And when we react, we fight the wrong battles, or ones we didn't need to fight at all. The first battlefield is always internal, and real victory begins in silence, the moment we choose to pause instead of explode, because only those who conquer themselves can avoid the wars outside. Sun Tzu also said, "Know your enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in danger." But do we really know who or what we're fighting? Most of the time, we're not facing people. We're fighting expectations, misunderstandings, fears disguised as harsh words. The real enemy is rarely visible, and when all we see is the threat, we miss what's behind it. The greatest strategists know this. They observe, they listen, they understand what the other side values, fears, wants. And by doing that, they often remove the need for conflict entirely. Take the Cold War, one of the most intense global standoffs, yet it was won through influence, intelligence, and psychological moves, not weapons. Understanding the enemy is like diffusing a bomb before it ever ticks. It's seeing what's coming and dissolving the tension before it becomes destruction, because many battles only exist when we fail to recognize the real enemy. There's a subtle but powerful difference between being clever and being strategic. Cleverness wants to win now. Strategy sees what comes next. Sun Tzu taught the importance of shaping the battlefield before the battle ever begins. That means preparing the environment, reading the room, and positioning yourself with intention, not reaction. This applies to everything. Business deals, tough conversations, high-stakes decisions. The true strategist doesn't charge into conflict, they redesign it. Studies from MIT show that companies using scenario planning and behavioral strategy reduce internal conflict by up to 43%. Why? Because they anticipate tension before it explodes. Real vision doesn't respond to chaos, it prevents it. It knows when to speak and when to stay silent, when to move forward and when to step back. Because the one who controls the ground rarely has to fight for it. To win without wounding, that's the hardest kind of victory, and also the most powerful, because it takes more than strength. It takes restraint, empathy, and vision. Sun Tzu believed that true victory preserves, that real power doesn't destroy. It protects, it transforms. Look at leaders like Nelson Mandela, who overcame decades of oppression without revenge, or Gandhi, who broke an empire with no violence, or Satya Nadella, who reshaped Microsoft not through domination, but through culture and humility. Harvard, it calls this non-oppressive power, influence built not on fear, but on trust. The result? Loyalty, respect, long-term results. Because victories that leave scars don't last, but the ones that inspire, heal, and elevate others, those are invincible. Maybe the biggest mistake we make is thinking that winning means making someone else lose. But what if winning is something deeper? Winning can mean keeping respect, preserving relationships, creating progress without causing resistance. Forced victories bring fear, resentment, and distance, but silent victories, they build admiration, trust, and stability. They don't just fix the moment, they shape the future. In Japanese culture, there's a word, wa, meaning harmony. Companies like Toyota and Sony follow this principle and have thrived for generations. To win might mean to convince without force, to influence without pressure, to conquer without breaking anything, because in the end, those who win the right way are the ones who turn conflict into connection. The true warrior doesn't seek to fight. He avoids it, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Sun Tzu was less a general and more a master of anticipation. He knew that war begins long before the first blow, and that the highest form of strength is choosing not to use it. Wisdom is knowing when not to act, when to listen instead of argue, when to wait instead of push. The Gottman Institute found that 70% of relationship conflicts could be avoided through better communication before the problem even starts. The wisest warriors don't need to prove anything. They don't need to fight to be respected. They move with intention and let presence speak louder than force, because they understand one well-timed gesture of peace is worth more than 1,000 forced victories. There's a story of a samurai who traveled across the land in search of the perfect enemy. After many years, he found an old master sitting in silence. He challenged him to a duel. The master said nothing. The samurai insisted. Still, no answer. Frustrated, he gave up. And only then did he realize he had just lost the fight he didn't know he was in. That was the victory. The war ended before it began, because the greatest enemy is not outside of us. It's the pride, the rush, the need to prove something. Sun Tzu taught that the supreme art of war is to win without fighting. But maybe what he really meant is that true victory belongs to those who've mastered themselves. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "The most powerful man is the one who has control over himself." And maybe, in the end, the strongest thing you can do is be so wise, so clear, so complete, that the battle simply never happens.